Alright, David Harry here. So, have you been wondering to yourself, what is the highest capacity hard disk drive that I can use with my iPhone 15? In this case, I'm using a Pro Max. Well, I can't tell you what the highest capacity is. However, I can tell you that an 18 terabyte hard disk drive definitely works with the iPhone. Now, what I'm going to do shortly is to flip the camera over and to show you how I've got this all set up. And I will also do some speed tests as well, dumping some video files from the iPhone to the hard drive. But before I get into that, there's a couple of things that I want to kind of like get clear here. I know there will be people out there who are going to be going, you want to put an 18 terabyte drive on a phone? Well, that's just stupid. Well, you know, if you're the type of person thinking like that, then I don't care, and this video isn't for you, right? But if you're somebody who's like going to be recording tons of video, which is highly likely there'll be a lot of people out there doing that with their new iPhones, and especially if you're using ProRes and you're doing, say, 4K 30 and up to like 4444 as far as like, you know, the chroma is concerned and stuff like that, they're going to be huge files. And even if you've got a half terabyte phone like this one, or you might have a terabyte one, they're actually going to fill up quite quickly. I've actually already filled this phone up just testing videos, and that's before I've actually done any proper video stuff on it. So if you've got like a half terabyte, which is like, you know, mostly full of ProRes files, you're going to want to archive those files. Now, of course, you could be backing them off to like a much faster SSD, but you're not buying an 18 terabyte SSD just to store the files on. Or you could even like push these over onto a computer, but the problem with that is you're still like chewing up space on your computer. So if you've got a relatively cheap drive, I'm going to say cheap, I mean cheap per terabyte. If you've got a relatively cheap drive like this, you can afford to just keep backing off tons of video files and then freeing up the space back on your iPhone. And then when it's like the right time to sort those files out on your external drive, then you can move them to whatever computer it is that you're going to be editing those video files on. Now, of course, all this can be done with different types of files, but for this video and for my particular usage, I'm just going to be concentrating on like video files and more specifically ProRes files. Again, this is something that I feel there will be a lot of people out there wanting to do, and rather than burning their way through like, you know, very expensive SSDs just to do intermediate backups with, something like this could be the solution for you. Now, this particular drive has been pre-formatted to APFS on one of my Macs. However, if you're going to be using, say, a Windows computer to edit the files on, all you got to do is format this drive or a similar drive to exFAT, and then that way it will be compatible with Windows and Mac. I'm just using APFS on this strictly because my main editing system is Mac, and APFS is the preferred file format for the drives for the Macs. Okay, I think I've probably explained enough there. So what I'm going to do now is flip the camera over. I'll just show you. It's a very simple setup. It's just a particular type of cable that we need to use to connect both the phone and the hard drive together, and then I will get into doing some speed tests as well. Okay, so as far as the setup is concerned, then here is the iPhone. Now, I can't remember if I said during the introduction, but unfortunately you will not get these speeds that you're going to see here out of a standard 15 or a 15 plus. Unfortunately, those two phones are capped at 480 megabits per second, which is 60 megabytes per second, and unfortunately they may not even work at those full speeds either, because this phone doesn't actually work at up to 10 gigabits per second, which is 1250 megabytes per second. So nonetheless, you will not see any of these speeds on a 15 or a 15 plus. And if you've got a problem with that, go and complain to Apple. Anyway, so I've got this cable here, which on one end has got USB-C, and then on the other end, this has got a micro B USB 3 type on the end. Now, the thing with this particular cable, it is capable of doing 10 gigabits per second, so a lot faster than what this drive is capable of doing. The reason why I'm pointing that out is because this cable cannot be a bottleneck to this setup. So whatever speeds you see here are the absolute maximum with this type of setup here. Now, of course, this drive is also powered as well, so there's the power cable for it, and with it being powered, then the iPhone doesn't have to get involved with doing anything to do with like powering a drive, which is another reason why this probably works work so well, because I've had a lot of problems with various SSDs with the iPhone because it's just incapable of powering certain ones, especially anything with a Gen 4 NVMe in it. There's videos going to be coming up about that issue soon. Anyway, so what I'm going to do, let me just get the cable in. So obviously I'm going to connect the C end to the iPhone there and get that pube off the table. Right, so let me get the other end of the cable here. Look, this is going to go a bit messy, but I'll try and kind of even it out once it's all connected up, because I've got kinks in the cables and stuff here. So let me get that in there. Oh yeah, and of course, yeah, the drive here is a Western Digital Elements 18 terabyte. And then what I'm going to do is pop that in there. We might even hear the drive spin up now. Hold on. Actually, I think I have to replug the USB-C cable in for that to happen. Give me a second. Yeah, there we go. If I just pull the drive up to the microphone. There we go, that well-worn sound that loads of us who are of a certain age are very used to, with the heads going flying across the platters. Seek times on these things are absolutely horrendous compared to SSDs. Anyways, that's not what this video is about. So what I'm going to do now is just show you what's in the file manager here. So if I go to Files, as you can see, look at that. It says 18 terabyte APFS. Now, the reason why it says APFS is because that's what I've titled it as. I actually have a couple of these drives. One's APFS, one's exFAT. So this is just for me to know that this is the APFS one. Now, before I actually do any of the transferring here, check this out. So I'll go to the drive. I've already got test dumps on it that I've already done. But check this out. This file here is from an Atomos Ninja. So this is obviously on the actual hard drive. Now this is 4K, 60 frames per second, and it's using ProRes 422HQ. I can't remember the bandwidth for that one. I might actually pop it up on the screen at some point anyway. But watch this. So look at that. It's playing that file there. Now, it might look a bit weird to you because that's a 60 FPS file and I'm recording 25 here. So that might look a little weird and jittery. However, and nonetheless, it is playing through. And then if I go searching or seeking through, as you can see, look at that. It's scrolling through. Now, it will take a little bit of time to catch up, I would imagine, when I go somewhere. Yeah, see that little like pause there? That's literally down to seek times anyway, to do with hard drives and such. And obviously it's nowhere near as fast as an SSD to buffer back into the iPhone. Anyway, yeah, that's just a quick example there, just to show you that you can indeed edit directly from one of these drives if you choose to do so. I mean, if that was connected to something like a fast, like, you know, a fast bus, like USB-C bus or whatever on a Mac, or say on a Windows PC, you're likely to be able to edit 2 streams of 422 ProRes HQ on that as well at 25 frames per second, because it could do one stream of 60 there. Again, seek times and stuff get in the way with using hard drives for that type of stuff. However, it is kind of like possible, although as I've already said, this particular drive here is more intended as an intermediate or long-term storage solution for all these, you know, all these files. Anyways, let me get out of there. So what I'm going to do now is go back to the iPhone. Now, this is where I think this becomes a bit of an issue, or not an issue, but a really good plus point for people. In fact, what I need to do, let me just put the drive to one side here. I'm sorry if this is all kind of dragging on a little bit here, but I want to do this in real time so people can see that there's no jiggery pokery going on. So I need to do this to get this other phone in here, which is going to be the timer. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go to on my iPhone. And as we can see, I have got a Blackmagic folder here. Now, there's a media folder there. So if I just get a quick look at that for the information, as we should be able to see there, that is 258 gigabytes. And it's got 39 items in it. When it says 39 items, I think that is just 39 video files. So like I'm saying, massive folder for a phone. So 558 gigabytes. In fact, it's a little bit more than that, but I'll use the calculation correctly when I actually come to do the bit rate for this, or the, you know, the speed bit rate. Anyway, so let me come out of there. So what I'm going to do is just hold down on there, and I will do copy. Now I'm not entirely sure actually in the past if you could actually copy entire folders on previous versions of iOS on other iPhones. You can actually copy that entire folder in one go, which is pretty cool. Like I said, I can't remember if that was a limitation in the past. Anyway, so what I'm going to do, I've hit copy. Now I'm going to come here to the 18 terabyte. Just going to hold my finger down on there. Now what I'm going to do is hit paste and then start on the stopwatch. So paste and start. Okay, so as we're going to see here, that's going to start like, you know, like copying over. However, this is going to take a long time because one, it is a hard drive, and two, that is like, you know, it's a fairly sizable folder. I mean, if we were talking in terms of like, you know, using 4 terabyte SSDs, then that folder isn't going to be particularly massive. However, for a hard drive system and for a phone, that really is quite a substantial folder. And once again, getting back to the whole point for this type of setup, you will easily fill up, you know, an iPhone, no matter what its size is. If you're like doing a lot of recording internally using ProRes, especially at 422 and 4K, so 422 HQ 4K at like say 24, 25 and 30 frames per second, you're definitely going to start blitzing, you know, the internal storage, which is why this solution I think is awesome. Anyways, what I'm going to do now is speed through this, then I will come into it at, you know, towards the end, and we'll get the timing of it, and that will allow me to calculate the bit rate. Okay, I'm going to come back in here. I'm still not too sure how long this is going to take, but as soon as it goes over, I'm going to hit stop. So there we go, stop. Okay, so I've hit stop there as soon as the blue dot up there got like full and stuff, and obviously the media folder is there. So as we can see, that is 19 minutes and 3 seconds. So what I'm going to do now is to take my SD card out of the camera and back it up, because I've got no more like time left on the card to do the next test. Okay, so I've got a fresh battery in the camera and I've just formatted the SD card after backing it up. So what I'm going to do here is hit reset on the stopwatch. Let me just go back here, and I want to go to the internal storage. I'll go to the Blackmagic folder there. And what I'm going to do is to erase the media folder there. So let me delete that. Okay, now I'll come back here and let me just double check if I have to delete the bin. Okay, so delete all. Okay, so hopefully I've now got the space back on the iPhone to move the folder back. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is go to the external drive and then going to copy that media folder back again. So copy. Let me come back here and I will go into the iPhone. I'll go back to the Blackmagic folder there. Once again, I'm going to just kind of, you know, hold and paste and then try and hit the start button at the same time. The thing is, there's going to be slight discrepancies between me doing like the finger pushes here, but because this is such a long time, those discrepancies will not come into anything. Anyways, there we go. So paste and start. So paste and start. Okay, so once again, I'm just going to speed through this, and then I will come back in at the end and we'll get the timing for it. And then from the 2 timings, I'm then going to work out the actual bit rate for, like, you know, moving from the iPhone to the hard drive and then from the hard drive back to the iPhone. Okay, I'm not too sure if I've come back in too early here, but I'm just going to get ready to hit stop as soon as that blue dot is full and the fold. Oh, there we go. Okay, so that took 28 minutes and 34 seconds. So what I'm going to do right now is just go away and make some quick calculations, and then I will just show the actual data rates in megabytes per second. Okay, so as far as the speeds were concerned in megabytes per second, the folder had a total file size of 258,886 megabytes. So when we transferred from the iPhone to the hard drive, that took 19 minutes and 3 seconds, which is 1,143 seconds. So if we divide 258,886 by 1,143, we get 226. So that speed was 226 megabytes per second. And then when I moved the files from the hard drive back to the iPhone, that took 28 minutes and 34 seconds, which is 1,714 seconds. So therefore, if we divide 258,886 by 1,714, we get 151 megabytes per second. So what we're basically seeing there then is a read speed of 226 megabytes per second when we want to offload the data to the hard drive. And then if we want to put the data back to the iPhone from the hard drive, that ends up being 151 megabytes per second. Now what you have to remember here is that both of those speeds are way faster than what the standard iPhone 15 and 15 Plus would do, even with an SSD. Plus also that speed of 226 megabytes per second is actually faster than certain SATA SSDs as well. So as a for instance, if you were to be using something like a Samsung QVO drive connected to the iPhone 15 Pro Max, that hard drive would actually be much faster than using a QVO SSD inside of a USB-C enclosure. And the reason for that is because depending upon the type of SATA SSD that you might want to use, the speeds can drop right down and actually go way below 50 megabytes per second when you're doing extremely long data dumps like this one. Now, one last other thing to mention here, I also have another one of these 18 terabyte hard drives, which has got almost 250,000 individual files on it. It's basically an archive for a load of stuff that I've got just hanging around. Now when I plug that into the iPhone, after about 5 minutes, it had identified roughly half of what was on the hard drive. So I'd say it easily recognized over 100,000 individual files. Now, I don't know whether or not that's got something to do with the exFAT formatting, and also if there's a particular limitation with how many individual files it may read, but it was reading the table of contents for ages. I kind of didn't bother after a point, but it did kind of basically get to around over 100,000 files. Now what that's telling me is that we are definitely going to be safe with about 100,000 individual files on one of these drives in various folders and folders within folders. However, for the type of data that I've been doing here, which is large ProRes files, we're not going to get anywhere near 100,000 large ProRes files onto one of these drives. So basically, we're probably only going to be talking maybe not even 1,000, I don't know, but definitely not 100,000. So my guess is here is that we are going to be safe in filling up this drive with as many ProRes files as we want to, transferring them over from one of these iPhones. Okay, so just to do a bit of a summary here, as we could see there, saving the files from the phone to the hard drive was actually really fast. It was somewhere in the region of, what was it, 240, 250 megabytes per second. Now, the thing with that is actually faster than what some phones can save to an SSD to. I've actually done videos recently where the S23 Ultra can only just about do that type of speed going to an SSD. So although, yes, it did take a long time, the folder was actually quite big. However, the actual bitrate was really decent from the iPhone to the drive. Now, going back from the drive to the iPhone, that was obviously a lot slower. I'm not entirely sure why that is. However, in this type of setup, it's less likely that you're going to be putting the files back to the iPhone. Like I said from the outset, this is more of a solution for you to directly archive to straight to a hard drive. And then you can kind of like, you know, mess with those files later, work out which ones you don't want and which ones you want to kind of transfer over to your editing computer. And indeed, you can edit directly from this drive. You can easily do 1 or 2 streams of like ProRes 422HQ 4K25. I've done it myself and it definitely works. I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing it. I would always recommend doing your editing, say, internally on a Mac or a Windows PC, or using like a really fast external SSD. But nonetheless, as you've seen here, this really is a very good solution for your intermediate storage needs for all your big massive files from your iPhone 15. Okay, so that should just about do it then for this video, and please do give it a thumbs up if you found it insightful or helpful in any way. And if you are into this stuff to do with like the iPhone 15 and say the iPad Pros and stuff like that on the Macs, you may want to consider subscribing to my channel, because I'm going to start doing a lot more videos to do with all of those types of products and stuff. And as ever, there will be Amazon links in the video description below, taking you to all the stuff used in the video. Anywho, I'm David Harry. Thank you very much for watching this video. Take care and goodbye now.